Be kind
This
and
week on
compassionate
the
to
Life
one
Well
another,
podcast.
forgiving each other just as Christ forgave you. And get rid of it efficiently, might I add. Get rid of it quickly. Don't do how I do when I spring clean my closet. And then I try on an outfit from 10 years ago and I read through the old journals and now I'm trying to figure out maybe I'll be able to fit this one day. And you never end up throwing the stuff away because you spent enough time with it to give life to a dead thing. Welcome back to the Life Well podcast. I'm your host, Catherine Young, and we are halfway through season 2. To even be able to say season 2 is crazy because that means that there was a season 1. I'm so honored that people follow me on social media. I don't like to say followers because that feels weird. It's a strange like hierarchy, power dynamic, but I also have subscribers on the Life Well podcast. As of right now, I have 159. Maybe by the time you're watching this, I have 200 or more, maybe 500. Maybe now I qualify for a little bit of monetization on YouTube. But all of the things that have come with this platform have been such a blessing to my life. And I do hope that it has added value to yours. We've been transparent all season long. Okay. We're not going to stop now. Last season around this time, I wrote and released an episode called Forgive When You Can't Forget. And on YouTube, that episode didn't necessarily get the most views, but on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, it definitely did. And across all platforms, it got the most feedback. This was the area where listeners wrestled in their wellness because of the lasting impression that pain and offense has on our body, our mind, and our soul. So we're doubling back, okay, on that topic today, but we're not talking about forgiveness as a word by itself. We're talking about her sister, unforgiveness, specifically offense. No matter how much you try to protect your peace, someone is going to say something or do something that kind of rubs you the wrong way or completely distorts your outlook on life or your day or your week. And here's the thing, offense is kind of inevitable, but living in that, that's a choice. And it's a choice that you made. And I know that that stings because it's a choice that I have made. And that choice has a major impact on your mental health and your relationships and your spiritual life. So, of course, it's important for us to talk about here on the Life Well podcast. So today, we're diving into why offense takes root in the first place, how unforgiveness holds you back, and how to hopefully break free. We always start with a question. Nothing's changed. I have a question for you all. And this is one of those episodes where you might want a little writing material or maybe an iPad to type your thoughts out. Question number 1, what have you gained from holding on to that? We're going to do a deep dive. We're digging deeper the entire time. So yes, this is the science in the Bible section, but we're really digging the entire time. Have you ever caught yourself replaying a situation over and over again in your mind? Like something small, maybe it was a comment that stung, or maybe it was something major like a betrayal. And most times, if you're anything like me, in the midst of that replay, you start to get some real good comebacks. Like, dang, I should have said that. Or if they ever run up on me again, I'm going to say this or I'm going to say that. And it kind of feels like something is going on there. It is. Okay. Something is happening psychologically and spiritually. Offense can start off really innocent. Okay. I've been there. We've talked about the fact that I hold on to things way longer than I should. And what I've learned is that offense isn't just about what happened. It's not just what was done. It's what you believe, like we talked about in last week's episode, and what you did with that. So, of course, we're going to jump into the science first. I have 2 definitions for my fellow nerds. Offense, first, is defined as an annoyance or resentment brought on by a perceived insult or disregard for oneself or one's standards or one's principles. Unforgiveness is defined as being unwilling or unable to forgive someone for upsetting you, betraying you, or breaking your trust. If we smush those 2 really fancy definitions together, we have this kind of experience where it's like an irritating frustration that is brought on by a wrongdoing that seemingly justifies holding another party responsible for your own pain. And if we smush Catherine's definition down even smaller, we have, I'm hurting and it's all your fault. And I'm going to make sure everybody knows it. That's what offense and unforgiveness is. Holding on to offense and harboring unforgiveness isn't just a spiritual issue, though. It can become a biological and psychological issue. Studies have shown that unforgiveness triggers your fight or flight response. And you've probably heard about this before. It keeps your body in a state of stress. It increases your stress levels that can lead to anxiety and depression. It can also lead to hypertension and even heart disease. When you live in offense, you are literally allowing your nervous system to stay in alert mode. Okay. God designed our bodies with a built-in alarm system. Last episode, we talked about neuroplasticity. Keep your science hats on. Okay. This episode, we're going to be talking about your autonomic nervous system. First, you have your sympathetic nervous system. Think of this as like your body's gas pedal. I use car metaphors a lot, not because I understand vehicles at all. Please do not be dismayed. I do not understand cars, but for your sympathetic nervous system, we're going to think about that as the gas pedal. It kicks in when a danger is present. It releases hormones like adrenaline and cortisol to prepare your body to fight or flee, to get out of the way, to get out of harm's way. And then we also have your parasympathetic nervous system. Think about that as the brake pedal. Okay. This part of your body is responsible for calming us down and restoring that balance. And normally, as God designed in his infinite wisdom, this system is supposed to be a gift. It helps us survive real threats. But when we hold on to offense and we hold on to unforgiveness, our bodies can kind of feel like it's constantly under attack. When offense is in the equation, sometimes the sight of a person or the sound of their voice or the place that you go cosplays as a threat. It's not a real threat, but it poses itself as a threat, and you feel like you're in the midst of an attack all the time. So instead of a temporary stress response to real active threats in the way that God designed, we say stuck in fight or flight mode at the potential of a threat because of the memory of a threat. This can lead to chronic stress, anxiety, depression, high blood pressure, and even your immune system is under war because of this. This is why bitterness feels exhausting, because it is. Your body is getting ramped up with enough energy to run away from a mountain lion in the middle of Publix. That's why panic attacks just drain your body of all of its energy, because your nervous system is in overdrive. And I want to be clear, this is happening at a chemical level. Cortisol is a stress hormone. God designed our entire body, so he also designed our hormones. It helps us manage short-term stress and short-term threats. It increases our energy, it sharpens our focus, and it temporarily suppresses like your non-essential functions like digestion and immune response so that we can act quickly in a crisis. You're standing in the middle of a forest. You see a bear. You don't know bears. That's not your pet. You've never met a bear before. It is likely that this bear doesn't want to be your friend. Your fight or flight system is going to kick in to give you the energy that you need to run away from it in a crisis. But when we live in offense and unforgiveness, that cortisol is starting to get overproduced when there is no bear. Okay. Even if you saw a bear once before and you remember what it's like to run from that bear, cortisol is spiking at the thought of a bear. You see a pillow over in the corner and you think that's a bear. You hear the sound of somebody that might be the person who lied to you in the line at the calf. That's the bear. And we're kind of having this unnecessary stress response. It's building up, it's living in our body, and now you have difficulty sleeping. Okay. You started going to therapy. You tell the therapist, I can't sleep. And the therapist is like, well, why can't you sleep? And you don't really know why. It's because your cortisol levels are too high. Your immune function is now being suppressed. You're getting sick more often because your non-essential functions are being pushed down because you're in fight or flight mode all the time. God designed cortisol for protection, not punishment. But when we hold on to offense, we are self-inflicting stress. Am I saying that what happened to you wasn't painful? No. I'm saying that what happened to you isn't here today. It's not living in your current present reality. Cortisol is not meant to be carried long term, but the enemy cannot create. He can only manipulate. So he took the good thing that God made and he tries to pervert it and make it something that it's not supposed to be. And that is what leads to chronic stress and turns into heart disease and all of the other kind of hypertensive dysfunctions. Now, there may be psychological and medical solutions to this, okay? There are. You can go to therapy, you can get medication, all of these things when we're in fight or flight mode all the time. Medication is great. Therapy is really great. But the true relief, I believe, is first found in the word. Our bodies were designed by the creator of the entire world, who is not unfamiliar with the condition of the human experience. Why? Because he wrapped himself in flesh. So he gets it. With that understanding of the human experience, Jesus was still very clear about his views on offense and unforgiveness. In Matthew chapter 6, verses 14 through 15, he says, "For if you forgive other people when they sin against you, your heavenly Father will also forgive you. But if you do not forgive others of their sins, your Father will not forgive your sins." Unforgiveness doesn't just affect your earthly relationships, your life at work, your life at church, or your life at home. It can block your spiritual growth. And one of the most beautiful examples, in my opinion, of Jesus addressing offense and brokenness, you could probably guess it, it's found in the book of John, chapter 4, verse 4. We see the woman at the well, my girl. Y'all know how I feel about her because her experiences are so true. They are so real. Here we have a woman who honestly had every reason to be offended, feel rejected, and hardened by life. She had been through 5 failed relationships. Okay. She was an outcast in her community. She carried such a deep shame and isolation. And I think about her so often because I've had a lot of the feelings that she's had. I think about her so often because the people that I work with in a professional way and the friends that I love so dearly talk about these same kinds of experiences, the bitterness that grows when offense has captured your heart. But let's look at how Jesus dealt with her. Instead of judging her, Jesus offered her grace. And if we really want to be more like him, last summer I was listening to the Encounter album nonstop, over and over and over and over and over again. And there was a song on that album called More Like Him. And it's a beautiful record. It is. And I would sing it. I'm not going to sing it now, but I would sing it. We want to be more like Jesus, more like, if you want to be more like Jesus, you should offer people grace when they hurt you. That's the tricky part, right? We sing these things, but we don't really know what it means. He acknowledged her past, but he did not condemn her. We acknowledge, and then we remind people of what they did to us, and then we weaponize what they did to us, and then we punish them for what they did to us, and then we plot and we scheme and we condemn, but we do not extend grace. That's what's wreaking havoc on your heart, your sleep, and your joy. Instead of being like Jesus, we're more like the adversary. Okay, is this a safe space? Can we be honest? We're more like the adversary because we're unwilling to lay down vindication. We are unwilling to lay down punishment until the situation is settled to our liking. I get it. But look at what Jesus offered her. Living water, something that would quench a deeper thirst than any relationship or validation could have ever done. Offense keeps us stuck in cycles of pain, but Jesus shows us that freedom comes when we accept truth, when we extend grace, and when we move forward with or without justice. Okay, this is easy in words, and I'm talking from a very high place as I'm communicating this on a podcast, but it is very deep heart work. The woman at the well left her encounter transformed, no longer weighed down by rejection. She went from being an outcast to an evangelist, telling her own story to the entire town about Jesus. If an encounter with grace encourages us to share about freedom, what does an encounter with bitterness encourage you to tell the whole town about? The telling is inevitable. You're going to go and tell. You're going to go and tell that. You're going to run and tell that. Whatever you consume is going to leave a residue. I like to think about it like this. If you and I decided to have some ice cream, we're out of spoons. Okay, so we're just consuming all of this with our hands. Every single thing that we touch after we finish our dessert is going to be plagued by the residue of what we consumed. Everyone who touches it after us is going to come in contact with the stickiness or maybe even the ants that are now consuming the ickiness of what we have touched. If we wash our hands of the issue and let it go down the drain, never to have that ice cream ever again, we leave no residue. If the offense has already happened, we already consumed it. But if we don't clean up our heart, if we don't go wash our hands of that issue, that residue is going to start to impact every conversation you have, every relationship that you have, every hug that you have is going to feel thwarted because we didn't consume grace. So we can't offer grace. We consumed offense. So what do we end up doing? Offering more offense. We also see this in Joseph's life in Genesis 37 through 50. We're not going to read all of that. Let's sum it up. This man had every single reason in the book to hold on to offense. His brother sold him into slavery, and these jokers considered that a favor because they really wanted to kill him. But instead of letting bitterness consume him, when the time came, Joseph forgave them. He forgave them before the time actually even came because he saw the bigger picture. What the enemy meant for evil, God used for good. If you consume offense, you can only cause offense. But if you consume grace, you can cause grace. And of course, this would not be the Life Well podcast if we didn't talk about the one who met the woman at the well in the first place, Jesus on the cross. If anybody had a right to be mad, it's him. Imagine, he was mocked, okay? He was beaten, crucified, and yet he still said, Father, forgive them, for they don't know what they are doing. You hurt so bad because you think that person knew exactly what they were doing. It almost gives you like a little bit of pride in your offense to say they knew exactly what they were doing and they meant to hurt me. So when I get back at them, they're going to get what they deserve. But they don't know. As much as these people who were crucifying Jesus knew that they were crucifying Jesus, he is saying here, they're not even fully comprehending what the repercussions of their actions are going to be. You think that person lied to you, stole from you, cheated on you, all of these things, and they knew every single tear you would cry and then did it anyway? Probably not. You're holding humanity to a standard that they cannot really hold. They're not omniscient. They're not omnipresent. That person did not know that when they hurt you in that way, not saying it was right, it was probably downright wrong, but they did not do it to thwart your entire lifestyle and your entire progress. But you can't forgive them because you think they did it on purpose. And even if they did, forgive them, for they didn't really fully understand the depth of what they were doing. This is happening in Luke chapter 23, verses 34. If Jesus, who was completely innocent, chose forgiveness, consumed grace, and offers grace, then why do we keep consuming offense and causing offense? I'm glad you asked. Offense is like carrying around a backpack full of bricks. Every time somebody offends you, you pick it up and you put it in your bag because you plan to take it back out one day and throw it at them. You're holding on to that offense because you've got vengeance on your mind. And I'm not just fussing at you, I'm fussing at myself. So this is a safe space. At first, it doesn't seem like much. You are carrying your bricks. You're picking them up. I got you for this. I got you for that. I got you for this. I got you for that. But now the weight is unbearable. The person who put the offense down at your feet doesn't even have on a backpack. They're living free, weightless. What they did was wrong, yes. But you're walking around with the bricks in your bag. Your mind and your body and your spirit start to feel this heaviness. And you're the only one suffering, not the person who offended you. That bitter taste that wrongdoing left in your mouth, it's only in your mouth, honey. Okay? It's only in your mouth. Offense is like a poison. You drink it, but you expect other people to suffer. If you've made it this far in the episode, and if it stings a little bit, I understand, but you're really here to dig deep with me, not just watch me, but dig deep with me. Let's get into it. I wasn't really sure, and I feel like I say this every time, like, oh, I didn't know how far down I could dig until we're here again. We're here again. I didn't know how far down I could dig until I wrote Power of Belief. But in the writing phase for this episode, and I just want to go on record and say this was not an episode. This by itself, like offense and unforgiveness, was not an episode. It was a very small excerpt and another episode. And thank God for friends. Thank God for editors. I wanted to stay on the surface. So I just kind of like tucked this into a different episode. But that would be so counterintuitive to what we do here at the Life Well podcast. So I was scrolling on Instagram one day, and one of my makeup artists, I only go to two girls. I don't know if I can shout them out or not. I won't because I don't want to get sued, but it's two girls that I trust with my face. One of them posted a book on her page, and it was called The Bait of Satan. And I read the screenshot on her page, and I was intrigued because that section was discussing offense. And I had just told someone the day before that I was mad with them, and they had no clue. So I got the book, and I loved it. Started reading it. I like reading. Started reading it, just turning the pages. Going until it got a little too personal. So before we dig into my life, I want to take a deep dive into this book. John Bevere wrote the book, The Bait of Satan. And the central idea of this book is offense is one of the enemy's most deceptive traps. It's a bait that lures us into isolation and into bitterness and to separation from what God has already deemed best for us. Bevere explains that when we allow offense to take root in our heart, and I want to be very clear about the image here. Trees, we see them up here, right? They're very tall. They've got branches on them, leaves, maybe even apples, bananas, mangoes, depending on where you are from. But how far down they really live is in the roots. And that's what offense is. The issue isn't always the fruit on the tree. The issue here is the roots that are in the ground. And in those roots are bitterness. So we become overly sensitive. Okay, we start to misinterpret people's actions and their words, and we assume the worst in the situation, not because of the fruit on the tree, not because of the thing the person said to you, not because of the way they looked at you, but because of the bitterness that is in the root of your tree. And we begin to justify our offense. We feed it instead of releasing it. And if I'm honest, and I know I say this a lot too, but it hit me in the chest. It hit me in the chest. I talked about on the last episode, the power of belief, that I went through a breakup and I did. It was terrible, horrible, bad news bears, but I was holding on to offense. I've been holding on to offense. I was in flight or fight all of the time. By the end of the last season, I had to reconcile that I had been cheated on several times, okay? Lied to and manipulated and used for 6 years. Okay, like that TikTok sound of Michael Jackson. None of it's true. It's all lies. None of it. That was my whole relationship. Okay. And I wish I could say that I didn't know. But after like the third girl, I had to admit, I always knew. And I chopped it up to the game and our age. And I forgave as much as I needed to for the safety of having a relationship. But when it all failed, and I watched him date other people within our social circle and continue his life with a new person, I felt replaced. And I was mad. I was so mad. I was offended by him. I was angry at the community I was in to the point where I had to leave. And the harder truth that I literally refused to accept was that I was mad at God. And this is the truth that I think most people run from. And that's why we all stay trapped for so long. Yes, you're mad at that person. Yes, you're mad at that organization. Yes, you're mad at the culture. Yes, you're mad at the government. But your confusion is really in your relationship with the Lord. And I wrestled with God on why? Why did you allow this to happen? Why did you allow me to be embarrassed like that? Why would you allow me to be humiliated like that? Why does it seem like, this was a question I asked for months. Why does it seem like you love him more than you love me? And I didn't do anything wrong. I was advised to just move on. And I couldn't. It's not my strong suit. I also received some advice to just let boys be boys. That hurt. And I couldn't do that either. I was encouraged to take it out on him and not the other women. And I couldn't do that either. I thought my key to freedom from offense and unforgiveness would be to forgive my ex, just forgive him and move on. If I could forgive the cheating that people knew about and the cheating that they didn't know about, if I could just forgive the lying that he knew I knew about and the lying he probably still doesn't even know that I know about. If I could forgive the abuse that I've always been too afraid to admit, then I'd be good. But nope. The unforgiveness that has wrecked me and plagued me and kept me in a cage doesn't even have anything to do with him. It is my unforgiveness toward the Lord. I felt like God did something to me. And in my heart of hearts, I was mad at him. Throughout the relationship, we lived in the same city. We attended the same church. We acquired many of the same friends. Our whole lives were kind of intertwined. So after we broke up, I was in fight or flight, like we just talked about. I was always on edge. Am I going to see him? Am I going to see one of the girls? I'm going to see this girl. I'm going to see that girl. I'm going to see his family. Who am I going to see? Who's going to remind me that the thing that I wanted is no longer mine? And as a result of all that cortisol and all that adrenaline, not only was my psychological state just in the trash, my spiritual life was too. What I didn't ever want to address was the offense in my heart toward God, because I had convinced myself like I had been wrong and I justified my bitterness. I thought I was like the woman at the well. Hey, I thought I was like Joseph. I had every right to be offended, and the noble thing was just ignoring him. No, I was not like them. I had no freedom because I offered no freedom. I consumed offense and I caused offense to the person who offended me and innocent bystanders throughout the entire situation instead of consuming grace and causing grace. I truly believe that I forgave my ex last year when I wrote, "Forgive when you can't forget." But I didn't even address how I really felt about the Lord. One, because I didn't think I could be mad at God. Like I wouldn't allow myself to admit it. I mean, come on, come on. I love God. He's big and he's mighty. There's songs about it. I know that that's true. And he does and has done so much for me. What kind of selfish brat would I be to admit that I was mad at God? But what kind of selfish brat am I to hold on to a self-righteous lie that keeps my mind in a constant loop of feeling betrayed by people, lying to the Creator, feeling betrayed by people, lying to God about it, feeling betrayed by myself, lying to God about it, and feeling betrayed by God and then lying to Him about it. I know better than to harbor hate towards people, but I hadn't even considered what this offense was doing to my relationship with the Lord. Offense creates a prison, and you built it with your own materials, and you walked yourself in there and you locked the door. Catherine, that's not fair. You don't know what they did to me. I could probably guess what they did to you, but they didn't do it to you in the cage of offense. You built that cage and you walked in and then you locked yourself in there. As Bevere points out, the Greek word for offense in the Bible is a scandalon. And that literally refers to the bait stick of an animal trap. You take the bait and it slams shut. And that's exactly what the enemy wants. He wants to keep you trapped in pain and unforgiveness and spiritual stagnation. And the book teaches, and you should read it, right? Don't take my word for it. Read the book. You probably won't be able to read it in one sitting because it's very sharp, kind of like this episode. It teaches you that offense is going to hold you back from blessings, not because you're in trouble with God for being mad at him or offended by people, but because you're lying. You're not telling the truth. When you let go of offense, you open yourself up to healing and restoration and peace. And that does not mean that you have to pretend like nothing ever happened. But it does mean that you have to refuse to allow it to have power over you. When we believe, that's why the power of belief it came before this episode. When you believe that God has let you down and withheld something from you or allowed a pain that you do not understand, it creates a fracture in your faith and your mental well-being. Harboring offense to God can lead to spiritual isolation. When we feel hurt by God, this is the point where if you're taking notes, I hear people say this, if you're taking notes, write this down. I would never say that, but I'm about to say it. If you are taking notes, write this down. Harboring offense leads to spiritual isolation. Why? Because when you feel hurt by God, you pull away from prayer. You may go to church, but you pull away from worship. You may go to church, but you pull away from reading his word. You cut yourself off from the source. And I did that. I returned to church, but I didn't necessarily return to prayer. I didn't necessarily return to worship and devotion. So even in a room full of the fire of the Holy Ghost, I still felt alone. The second thing that harboring offense does is it creates bitterness and distrust. Instead of trusting in God's greater plan, we begin to believe the lie that he doesn't care, he's forgotten about us. I feared so deeply that I was missing out on the life that I wanted that I couldn't have. The life that I had didn't want me. And I can trust God to deliver me from that loop. I can even start to fathom that the life that I wanted probably wasn't the best thing for me. Because if you've been keeping up with the Life Well podcast and you know me in real life, this podcast didn't exist when that relationship did. And it probably never would have. Harboring offense can also lead to depression and anxiety. You feel abandoned by God. It makes you feel hopeless. That is one of the key markers in depression when we're looking at it from a clinical standpoint. When you start to lose hope, that's when depression starts to build on a neurological level. And the last thing is it leads to resentment and control issues. We may try to take control of our lives and we refuse to surrender things to God's timing because you don't trust him. But here's the truth. God is not afraid of your pain, okay? He didn't smite me when I admitted it, okay? I didn't want to admit it. And I'll be honest, I'm recording this, what day is it? It's a Saturday. I admitted this on Tuesday, okay? This just happened on Tuesday. I'm still here. I'm still living and breathing. I sat down and I made a list. I walked out to my patio with my journal and I made a list. I had a plan. I said, I got 2 or 3 things that I want to talk to you about, God. But I ended up writing 20. 20 things, some related to this, some unrelated, random things that I didn't even know was bothering me anymore. And that's the kind of digging that set the woman at the well free. Just like her, I sat down and I expected to address the surface when I wrote this original episode. And she wanted to talk to Jesus about the surface level things. And he just cut to the chase. Honey, the man you're with isn't even your husband. Let's get down to business. That's what happened to me in my journal. And I hope that that happens to you and yours. That's the kind of digging that allowed Joseph to feed the people that wanted to kill him. So when we address our offenses, no matter how great they are or small, there is never going to be a justification for you locking yourself in a cage that you built because of what somebody else did. It doesn't make sense. And let's not get so wrapped up in our own experience that we forget at times we're not Joseph. We're the brothers. Okay. Colossians 3:13 says, bear with each other and forgive one another. If any of you have a grievance against someone, forgive as the Lord forgave you. Yes, something happened to you, but be careful not to be the thing that happens to someone else. The word is true. Forgiving is not just a command, it's a gift. Ephesians 4:31-32 said, get rid of all bitterness, all rage and anger, brawling and slander, along with every other form of malice. Be kind and compassionate to one another, forgiving each other just as Christ forgave you. And get rid of it efficiently, might I add. Get rid of it quickly. Don't do how I do when I spring clean my closet and then I try on an outfit from 10 years ago and I read through the old journals and now I'm trying to figure out maybe I'll be able to fit this one day. And you never end up throwing the stuff away because you spent enough time with it to give life to a dead thing. Right? Get rid of that bitterness and rage as soon as it pops up, because you may hold on to it just like I'm holding on to the sweatpants from gym class 10 years ago. When you spend time with it, you breathe life back into it. Yes, it hurt you. It did. But like I said in the last episode, when are you going to let the credits roll on that story? Do it quickly so that your heart doesn't look like my closet, cluttered with a whole bunch of stuff that doesn't even fit you anymore. I feel like I should be offering like donut gift cards or ice cream gift cards or like blankets, pillows, something soft, because I do feel like I've been yelling for the past hour. But I've been yelling for the past hour because this is a subject matter that literally can keep you caught up in a cycle for a lifetime. When I recorded Forgive When You Can't Forget, one of the things that I've honestly listened to over and over again, and I hear people talk to me about it, is this idea of weaponizing your unforgiveness. And that's really what this episode is about. There are tons of things that I could have referenced and talked about when I should have forgave somebody and I didn't. But I selected the topic for the Digging Deeper segment that I did because of one sheer fact. That is the only area in my life where I can honestly say I elected dysfunction because it made me feel good. That is the trick of the enemy. Letting go of an offense doesn't mean you're excusing the wrongdoing. And the truth of the matter is, some people may never know what happened to you. Some people may never know about the abuse. Some people may never know about the thing that person said to you and the way that it made you feel. If I really wanted to do a full expose on the toxicity of the relationship that I was in, I would get so much sympathy, but I don't need sympathy. There's a version of me that did. But the version of me now that has made a decision to get out of the cage, not only have I gotten out of it, I have completely destroyed it because I want to choose my own peace. I'm letting the credits roll on that story. And there are some practical ways to walk in that forgiveness. Acknowledge the hurt. Okay. Suppressing your feelings doesn't do anything. Feelings are like really good Thanksgiving food. If you don't eat it today, it's going to be there tomorrow. Okay. You've got to make a decision. You're going to eat it or you're going to throw it away. Okay. You just end up saving them for later. You got to be honest about what hurt you and why to the person responsible. Okay. And sometimes you have to contend with the Lord about those things. He's not going to smite you for telling him, I thought you were going to do this and you did that. Get curious about why he did that. Inquire of the Lord. Now, this is the hard advice. Take a deep breath, if you will. You're going to have to pray for the person that hurt you. But it's really hard to stay bitter when you are actively praying for somebody's well-being. It's going to seem silly at first. You may not even really know what to say, but we know that the beast you feed is the one that thrives. So pray for your ex. I know. Do it. I've done it. Pray for your mom who abandoned you. Pray for that boss who disrespected you. Pray for the friend that used you. And keep the main thing the main thing. The church hurt that you think is keeping you from being able to serve, pray for that ministry. Because that might not even really be your issue. The hurt that you're dealing with, the remedy is in prayer. Jesus said in Luke 6:27-28, love your enemies, do good to those who hate you, bless those who curse you, and pray for those who mistreat you. Take the Bible serious. He's not just making poetry for us to put on coffee mugs. This is instructions for how to live your life. Then you'll be able to shift your perspective. And then you can set boundaries if necessary. I want to be clear here. We're setting boundaries with people. Our culture has gotten really good at boundary setting, I'll be honest. But we set boundaries with God. You're supposed to create boundaries with created things, okay? He's the uncreated one. Those boundaries are unnecessary. You want full access to him, and you want him to have full access to you, even when it hurts. Make sure that you release it daily, right? Because it may sting daily. And replace that bitterness with gratitude. When offense tries to creep back in, redirect your focus to what's good in your life. Philippians 4:8 encourages us to think on whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, and whatever is admirable. And what's true is that God will never leave you or forsake you. What's noble is loving yourself as you love your neighbor and vice versa is good news. What's pure is being in right relationship with God, self, and others comes from being honest and telling him how you feel and how you felt. What's lovely is tasting and seeing that the Lord is good and his mercy does endure forever. And what's admirable? Well, I'm glad you asked. Being well, becoming well, and staying well. And if I were to leave you with any practical homework, it would be to do what I did 4 days ago. Make a list. If you're mad at a person, make a list about the things you are mad at with them. If you're still in relationship with that person, y'all probably need to talk. You know what I mean? If you're mad at God, make a list. You're in relationship with him, y'all probably should talk, admit it, and pray daily to be free, not only from the offense, but also from the offender. Until you feel the shaking, until you feel it breaking, you keep praying. As always, I hope that this episode found you well, and you are in my prayers, like my real prayers, my actual journal that I used to do every single episode with. You are in there. Every person who watches these episodes, I am praying for you and I am thinking about you. And I hope that you have become well. And prayerfully, we all stay well. I'm Catherine, and this is the Life Well Podcast.